The transport vessel's landing thrusters kicked up clouds of red dust across the Martian diplomatic compound as Ambassador Darian Thorne watched from the observation deck. Another cultural exchange, another political chess piece disguised as friendship between worlds. He'd overseen dozens of these arrangements in his 15 years of service. But something about today felt different. The Veldrayan delegation emerged in their ceremonial robes, deep indigo fabric that seemed to absorb the artificial atmosphere's light. Behind them walked a figure that made Darian's breath catch not from her obvious alien beauty, but from the profound sadness that seemed to emanate from her like a visible aura. Princess Valessa moved with the fluid grace her people were known for. Her pale purple skin, luminescent against the stark Martian landscape, golden curls framed a face that belonged in ancient earth sculptures, but her violet eyes held depths of pain that no artist would dare capture. She wore simple traveling clothes rather than royal regalia, another subtle message from her empire. Ambassador Thorne, the lead delegate, spoke in accented standard. We present Princess Valessa, youngest daughter of Empress Morthia, as a gesture of continued peace between our peoples. Darian had read the classified reports. He knew what gesture of peace really meant. The princess had been deemed unsuitable for royal marriage alliances due to alleged fertility issues, a death sentence for any noblewoman in the matriarchal Veldrayan society. Rather than execute or imprison her, the Empress had chosen a more elegant solution: exile disguised as diplomacy. Our Highness. Darian bowed formally, noting how she flinched slightly at the title. Welcome to Mars Station. Olympia, I hope your journey wasn't too difficult. Valessa's voice was soft, musical, despite its hollowness. Thank you, Ambassador. I am grateful for your hospitality. The words sounded rehearsed, empty of genuine feeling. The delegation completed their formal handover with bureaucratic efficiency, leaving behind ceremonial gifts and political platitudes. As their ship lifted off, Darian found himself alone with a woman who had just watched her entire world abandon her. They're not coming back, are they? Valessa asked quietly, still staring at the sky where the transport had disappeared. Darian could have offered diplomatic comfort, false reassurances about temporary arrangements and future visits. Instead, he chose honesty. No, Your Highness, they're not. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something she'd already known. Please just ... Valessa. I'm no longer a princess of anything. You'll always be royalty, Valessa. That's not something they can take away. For the first time, she looked directly at him, studying his face with those remarkable violet eyes. You don't understand? In my world, a woman who cannot bear children has no value, no purpose. I am nothing. The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. Here was someone who had been systematically destroyed by her own family's expectations, convinced of her worthlessness by the very people who should have protected her. Then perhaps Darian said gently, "It's time you discovered what you're worth in this world." Something flickered in her eyes, not hope, not yet, but maybe the faintest possibility that hope might someday return. It was a beginning, fragile, as spun glass, but real, as he led her toward her new quarters. Darian couldn't shake the feeling that this diplomatic assignment would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Valessa's arrival, and Darian found himself looking forward to their daily interactions with an intensity that surprised him. She moved through the diplomatic quarters like a ghost at first, apologizing for taking up space, for breathing too loudly, for existing. You don't have to ask permission to eat, he told her one morning, finding her standing uncertainly in the kitchen area of her suite. In the palace, unmarried women ate only after the fertile ones had finished. She replied matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Darian set down his coffee harder than necessary. This isn't the palace. This is your home now. And you. Eat when you're hungry. He began joining her for meals, initially to ensure she was actually eating. But soon, because her quiet observations about Earth culture fascinated him, she absorbed everything: the way humans gestured while speaking, how they laughed at their own mistakes, the casual physical contact between friends. Your people touch so easily? she mused one evening as they watched a human comedy program. Together on Valdrea, physical contact is reserved for mating rituals or displays of dominance. What about affection, comfort? Darian asked, genuinely curious. Velessa's fingers traced absent patterns on the couch's fabric. Affection is conditional, based on usefulness. I haven't been touched gently since I was a child, before they knew I was broken. The casual way she called herself broken made his chest ache. Without thinking, Darian reached over and covered her hand with his. Her skin was surprisingly warm despite its pale purple hue, and she went perfectly still at the contact. "You're not broken," he said firmly. "You're here, you're breathing, you're learning and growing every day. That's not broken, that's human." She stared at their joined hands, her breathing shallow. "Why do you treat me like I still matter?" The vulnerability in her voice undid him completely. "Because you always did." Their evening walks became ritual. The observation deck offered spectacular views of the Martian sunset, and Velessa would point out constellations from her homeworld while Darian shared Earth's mythologies. During one of these sessions, she surprised him by laughing a genuine, musical sound that made something warm unfurl in his chest. "What's funny?" he asked, grinning at her unexpected joy. "You humans name everything after your romantic disasters," she said, gesturing at the stars. "Broken hearts, tragic lovers, unfaithful wives. On Voldrea, our constellations are named for battles and conquests. Maybe that's the difference between our peoples," Darian suggested. "We remember love, even when it hurts. You remember only victory." Velessa grew quiet, her laughter fading. "Perhaps that's why I'm here. I've never learned to conquer anything, not even my own inadequacies. Or maybe you're here because someone finally recognized that there are more important things than conquest." She turned to look at him then, really look at him, and the intensity in her violet eyes made his breath catch. The air between them crackled with possibility, with want, with something neither of them had names for yet.
"Arian?"
she whispered, his name sounding like music in her accent. He leaned closer, close enough to see the flecks of silver in her eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Yes, I don't know how to do this, any of this. I was trained to be a vessel for someone else's legacy, never to want things for myself." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb tracing the elegant line of her cheekbone. "Then learn. We have time." When she leaned into his touch, eyes fluttering closed, Darian felt something shift between them, something deeper than diplomacy, stronger than sympathy, something that felt dangerously like falling. "Show me," she breathed against his palm. "Show me what it means to matter." Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory, two people from different worlds learning each other's language of touch. But when she sighed against his lips and pressed closer, Darian knew that everything had changed. They were no longer ambassador and exile. They were simply two hearts learning to heal together. The kiss had changed everything, though neither spoke of it the following day. Velessa moved differently, now less, like she was apologizing for existing, more like she was discovering what existence could mean. Darian caught himself watching, her constantly memorizing the way starlight caught in her golden curls, how her laugh had become less surprise and more joy. 2 weeks passed in a dance of almost touches and meaningful glances. Every shared meal became charged with possibility. Every accidental brush of fingers sent electricity through both of them. The tension was exquisite torture. "I've been thinking," Velessa said one evening as they prepared dinner together. She was learning to cook human food, claiming it helped her understand Earth culture better. Darian suspected she simply enjoyed creating something with her own hands. Dangerous habit, he teased. Stirring the sauce she'd been laboring over, she smiled at that, no longer flinching when he joked with her. "About what you said before, about mattering." Her voice grew softer. I think I'm beginning to understand." Darian set down the spoon, giving her his full attention. "What do you understand?" "That maybe the way they measured my worth was wrong. Maybe I was never broken at all, just incompatible with their system." Pride swelled in his chest at her words, at the strength she was discovering within herself. "Exactly." She moved closer, close enough that he could smell the subtle floral scent that was uniquely hers. But there's something else I don't understand. What's that, this feeling? When you look at me, when you touch me, my body responds in ways I was never taught to expect. Is this, ... double quotes. She hesitated, color deepening in her cheeks. Is this what humans call desire? Heat pooled low in Darian's stomach at her innocent question. Valessa, I want to understand, she said, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw with trembling fingers. I want to know what it means to be wanted for who I am, not what I can produce. He caught her hand, pressing it flat against his cheek. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to the way things were. Her smile was radiant, transformative. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. With you. When he kissed her this time, there was nothing tentative about it. She melted against him, her body fitting perfectly against his, as if they'd been designed for each other, his hands tangled in her curls, while hers explored the planes of his chest through his shirt. Beautiful, he murmured against her throat, tasting the salt-sweet flavor of her skin. You're so beautiful, Valessa. She gasped when he found the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder, her alien physiology responding with surprising familiarity to his touch. I never... no one ever. I know, he soothed, lifting his head to meet her eyes. This is just for you. Just because you deserve to feel good. They moved to his quarters without discussion, hands never breaking contact. Valessa's breath hitched when he began unbuttoning her shirt, revealing the pale, purple expanse of her skin marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shimmer in the low light. These are beautiful, he breathed, tracing the delicate designs with his fingertips. Birthmarks, she explained shakily. Every Veldrian has them. They're supposed to indicate fertility potential. Her voice turned bitter. Mine were red as barren. Darian pressed his lips to one of the swirling patterns. Then the readers were fools. These are perfect. You are perfect. What followed was a slow, reverent exploration of bodies and boundaries, of gasps and sighs in 2 languages. Valessa was responsive, eager, learning his body with the same intense focus she brought to everything else. When she cried out his name as pleasure crashed over her, Darian felt something profound shift in his chest. Later, she traced lazy patterns on his skin. She whispered, I understand now. Understand what? Why they were so afraid of sending me away? It's not because I was worthless, but because they knew someone might see my actual value. Darian tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to the crown of her head. Their loss is my gain. Ours, she corrected softly. Our gain. In that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, with the Martian night sky blazing beyond the windows. They both knew they were no longer playing at diplomacy. This was love, messy and impossible, and absolutely real. 3 months into what Darian had begun thinking of as their secret marriage, Valessa collapsed during their morning walk. One moment she was laughing at something he'd said about human bureaucracy. The next she was on her knees retching violently. The medical bay now, Darian said. Scooping her into his arms despite her protests, Dr. Elena Vasquez ran every test in her arsenal while Darian paced the waiting area like a caged animal. Veldrian physiology was still relatively mysterious to human medicine. The basic biological functions should have been straightforward enough to diagnose. Ambassador Dr. Vasquez emerged with an expression that mixed confusion with wonder. I need to speak with both of you. Valessa looked pale even by her species standards, her golden curls limp with perspiration. Darian took her hand immediately, noting how she gripped his fingers with desperate strength. Ow. What is it? He asked, fearing the worst. Some kind of compatibility issue. Interspecies contamination. Dr. Vasquez shook her head slowly. Princess Valessa is pregnant. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Valessa went perfectly still, her violet eyes wide with shock. Darian felt his world tilt on its axis. That's impossible, Valessa whispered. I was tested, examined, declared sterile by the finest medical minds on Valdrea. Dr. Vasquez pulled up the scans on her tablet. Of According to these readings, you're approximately 8 weeks along. The fetal development appears normal, though I'll admit I'm working with limited knowledge of Veldrian human hybrid pregnancies. Hybrid, Darian repeated numbly. Our baby. Valessa's free hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, wonder replacing shock on her face. We made a child. The implications hit them both simultaneously. This wasn't just medically impossible, it was politically explosive. Sterile Veldrian princess producing an heir with a human mate would send shockwaves through both governments. Doctor, how confidential are these results? Darian asked. Completely, unless there's a medical emergency requiring outside consultation. Good. We need to think about this before the communication terminal chimed with an incoming priority message. The Veldrian royal seal filled the screen, and Empress Morthea's imperious face appeared. Daughter, the Empress said without preamble. Curious medical readings have reached our attention through our embassy's monitoring systems. You will submit to immediate examination by our physicians. Valessa straightened, and Darian saw steel enter her spine. Mother, how unexpected to hear from you after months of silence. Do not test me, child. These readings are accurate. You will return home immediately for proper medical oversight. If I refuse? The Empress's smile was cold as space. Then we will assume the readings are false, the result of alien contamination or deliberate deception. The consequences for such deception would be severe for all parties involved. The threat was clear. Comply or face the full diplomatic and military might of the Veldrian Empire. I need time to consider, Valessa said steadily. We have 20 hours. Do not disappoint us again. The connection severed, leaving them in heavy silence. She can't force you to go back, Darian said immediately. Earth's sovereignty would crumble under Veldrian pressure if they really wanted me back, Valessa finished. She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the Martian landscape. But that's not what this is about. Then what? She turned. Back to him, one hand still protectively cradling her stomach. She's terrified. A hybrid child, especially one born to her defective daughter, would fundamentally challenge everything the Veldrian power structure is built on. Darian joined her at the window, pulling her into his arms. So what do? We prepare for war, Valessa said simply, because that's what this is now. A war for our child's future, for our right to exist as a family. She looked up at him, and he saw the broken exile was truly gone. In her place stood a woman who had discovered her worth, her strength, and her purpose. They cast me aside thinking I was worthless, she continued. Now they'll learn exactly what they threw away. The Veldrian warship arrived 3 days ahead of schedule. A deliberate intimidation tactic that might have worked if they'd been dealing with the broken princess they'd exiled. Instead, they found Valessa standing in the diplomatic reception hall, radiant in her pregnancy and flanked by both human and allied alien representatives. Empress Valessa said formally, as her mother materialized via hologram, flanked by the usual court retinue. How kind of you to finally visit. Empress Morthea's violet eyes, so like her daughter's, blazed with barely controlled fury. Enough games, child. You will return home immediately for proper medical care and to ensure the legitimacy of this impossible pregnancy. Impossible, Dr. Vasquez interjected, stepping forward with her medical tablet, yet thoroughly documented. Princess Valessa is carrying a healthy hybrid fetus at 22 weeks gestation. The Empress's gaze shifted to Darian, and he felt the weight of her contempt like a physical blow. And you, human, do you truly believe your mongrel offspring has any place in the royal lineage of Valdrea? I believe, Darian said steadily, that our child represents the future bridge between our peoples that your empire desperately needs. Bridge. The Empress laughed, the sound sharp as breaking crystal. Oh, you've created an abomination that threatens the purity of our bloodline, Valessa said, her voice carrying new authority. I've created proof that your medical experts were wrong. Your political system is flawed, and your understanding of worth is fundamentally broken. The court murmured at this unprecedented defiance. Valessa continued, one hand resting protectively on her rounded belly. Ald! You cast me aside because you believed I was sterile. You built your entire judgment of my value on that assumption. But here I stand, Carrying a child you claim is impossible, loved by a man who sees my actual worth. Worth? The Empress spat. You forget yourself. You're property of the crown, married to whomever we choose, breeding as we command. I was property, Valessa corrected. But you gave me away, remember? And my new family doesn't deal in ownership? Stepped closer to his wife, their shoulders touching in unified support. Princess Valessa has chosen to become a citizen of Earth. Our child will be born under human protection. Impossible. We do not recognize your primitive marriage customs or citizenship transfers. Then we'll make you recognize them, came a new voice. Ambassador Chen Wei of the Terran Federation stepped into view, accompanied by representatives from 6 other allied species. The Galactic Council has voted. Princess Valessa's citizenship transfer is legally binding, as is her marriage to Ambassador Thorn. The Empress's composure cracked visibly. You dare challenge the Veldrian Empire? We dare defend a member of our alliance, Ambassador Chen replied smoothly. Princess Valessa requested asylum. We granted it. For the first time since the confrontation began, Valessa smiled, not the broken, apologetic expression of her early exile, but the confident smile of a woman who had found her strength. You have a choice, mother, she said. Accept that your daughter has found happiness and worth beyond your narrow definitions. Or continue to cling to a system that drives away your own family. The Empress stared at her daughter for a long moment, and Darien thought he saw something almost like respect flicker in those violet eyes. This is not over, the Empress said finally. No, Valessa agreed. But it's also not up to you anymore. Hologram cut out, leaving them in triumphant silence. Epilogue 6 months later, Darien watched. His wife nursed their daughter in the pre-dawn quiet of their new home on Earth. Little Arya had her mother's violet eyes and silver-marked skin. Her father's stubborn chin and curious nature. She's perfect, he murmured, still marveling at the miracle in his arms. She's ours, Valessa corrected, looking up at him with eyes full of contentment. The first of her kind, but not the last. Through the window, Earth's sun painted the sky. In shades of gold and rose, somewhere among the stars, the Veldrian Empire was slowly adapting to the reality of hybrid children and questioning their own rigid traditions. Ambassador reports suggested other failed royal daughters were beginning to ask dangerous questions about their worth. Any regrets? Darien asked softly. Valessa shifted their daughter to her shoulder, patting the tiny back with practiced ease. Only that it took exile for me to discover who I really was. And who are you? Her smile was radiant, transformative, utterly free. I'm a mother, a wife, a bridge between worlds. And for the first time in my life, that's more than enough. Arya gurgled contentedly between them. Darien knew they hadn't just created a child, they'd created a new future. One where worth wasn't measured in fertility or politics, but in love, choice, and the courage to define yourself. Their daughter would never doubt her value. She would grow up knowing she was wanted, cherished, and free to become whatever she chose to be. It was the greatest gift they could offer, just to her, but to both their worlds.